Hi, I'm Carolina,
And I'm Amanda.
and we're co-owners of Booty. It's a yoga studio in La Jolla, and we're online too. It's bootymoves.com, and you spell it booty like Buddha, Buddhi, moves.com. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Bryan Kest. He's one of my favorite teachers of all time, and he just wrote a book called Autobiography of an American Yogi.
And we both loved this book so much. Carolina read it first and wouldn't stop talking about it. So I picked it up, and we both have always loved Bryan Kest, but I wasn't prepared for how much I was going to love this book.
It's so good.
It's so good. And it chronicles like his whole life pretty much. But also all the time he spent developing his practice, becoming a teacher, and where he's at today and that whole story. And we both were in LA for much of what happens in this book. So it's kind of fun to look back on those good old days.
Yes. And he's been to our studio several times in the past, and he's coming again on November 2nd for a workshop at 4 p.m. So let's welcome Bryan, and thank you for listening to Booty Babble. All right, here we are. Bryan, welcome to our podcast. It's called Booty Babble.
Booty Babble. Cool. I'm happy to be with you guys.
So we're excited to have you. As I mentioned earlier, Amanda and I just recorded a little bit between us two, that you're going to come to our studio again November 2nd. And we also talked a little bit about your book. So we're going to have some questions about that. The first question I had for you was, the one thing that stood out the most always from taking your class when I was living in LA to your book was just how simple you put the yoga philosophy. You just put it in such a way that it's easy for people to understand. Like, I think people just overcomplicate like what yoga is. So the way you explain it to me makes a whole lot of sense. So I was just wondering if you came up with the way you explain the yoga philosophy, like from your yoga practice, from your meditations, from life experience, from all of it.
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. And, you know, I explain it the way I explain it because, that's the way I see it. So I just explain it the way I see it. I don't see it as a complicated thing. I do know that people love to make it complicated. They like to, none of my yoga experiences really have been esoteric. There's been nothing strange or weird. It's all been, very simple, basic, but yet powerful stuff. And, that's the way I like to share it. Plus, I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but, I never went to school past 15 years old. I'm a high school dropout or junior high school dropout. And, so, I'm not this high intellect. I don't have any desire to impress anybody with my big words. Um, but also, I do see this as very simple. I mean, I like look at the Ten Commandments. I mean, I don't know if there's anything ever on earth that's ever been written that's more powerful, and I don't know if there's anything that's ever been written that's more simple. Like it's just it's simple, but now simple doesn't mean easy. So just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. I think simple is actually one of the hardest things in the world, right? Especially now we've all become so busy and complicated. It's not easy at all to be simple. So it doesn't mean easy, but it is simple. I mean, if you make the stuff complicated, then you're going to alienate half the people or more. That are not understanding you, and it's unnecessary.
Right, that's true. So if you had to explain it in 2 sentences or less, what is the whole yoga philosophy?
Well, that's really simple, of course. The If you want to put it into 2 sentences, you would say, or maybe 1 sentence, yoga practice, right? Yoga practice is the time that one takes to strengthen the benevolent and to eradicate the malevolent. It's that simple. That's exactly what we're doing. We're strengthening the benevolent, we're eradicating the malevolent. That's what yoga practice is. If it's not that, it's not yoga. That's the whole objective. And any way on earth that you can do that is a yoga practice.
Yeah. And that is a very simple answer, but not an easy one to come up with. It's like all your years of teaching have kind of fed into that. And that's one of the many reasons we both have loved your classes for so many years. It's just easy to understand, but so deep.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So what do you think the best part of being a yoga teacher is? If you had to choose one thing.
That's a great question too, and there because there's so many. You're right. If I had to choose one thing, you know, I don't know. There's so many great things. Whether it's having the opportunity to share my passion, whether it's having an opportunity to contribute positively to other people's lives, whether it's having an opportunity to contribute positively to the state of things on this planet right now. I don't think there's anything that's more necessary right now in the world than yoga. I don't feel like, I'm a practical person. Um, and I really don't feel like there's any way out of the mess that humanity's in, other than um, that more and more people strengthen the benevolent and eradicate the malevolent. I don't see another way out of it. Everything comes down to the mind state of people, right? That's what everything comes down to. It's where does the people's mind dwell? Because whatever you see is a byproduct of that, right? And so where your mind dwells is the largest factor in personal well-being, right? Because they say that, I mean, right now, even the American Medical Association is saying like something like 90% of all physical disease is coming from mental stress.
Yeah.
So where your mind dwells not only is the biggest factor in your own health, but where your mind dwells is the biggest factor in, the state of humanity, right? Because what you see when you look at the world, which I believe is why this is so important right now, because, we're really at a do or die place. I mean, with the level of toxicity on this planet, the level of from global warming to cancers and heart diseases and diabetes and obesity and just physical decay being off the fucking charts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just yeah, they say 52% of all kids under 19 years old have autoimmune disease. They say if autism continues at the rate it's been by 2030, 80% of all boys will be on the autistic spectrum. I mean, we are fucking sick. We have trashed our planet, and the level of a toxicity is affecting everything, right? And to me, the reason for all this is really it's based in fear, and it's based in greed, and it's based in gluttony, and it's based in people unwilling to look at the tendencies within them that are contributing to this. Right now, there's actually a quantum physics law, and that law is called the law of attraction. It means like attracts like, right? And that means, you can't see anything that's not coming from you, right? Like you're attracting it. Everything you see is actually coming from you. So when you look at the news, basically, you're looking at a reflection of yourself, right? It's like you're looking at your mind state and what it's creating. So in order to see something different, we have to shift where our mind dwells. That's probably why, Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see, because it can't change in the world if it doesn't change in me. Right. So, the answer is in space travel and technology and moving everybody to fucking Mars like Elon Musk wants to do or whatever. I mean, we're just going to do the same damn thing on Mars, right? I mean, it's like the answer, and it's the hardest answer, but because if modern medicine, I mean, yeah, if this all this is being created by where our mind dwells, um, there's actually a Harvard study that said something like 80% of the thoughts you have are the same thoughts you have every day. And if that's even close to being true, that means the largest addiction of your life is the place where your mind dwells. And we all know how hard it is to break addictions, right? I mean, you have to get sick before you get better. They call it withdrawal symptoms. Can you imagine the ferocity of trying to break the largest addiction of your life? And no one wants to deal with that, right? So what, you think you're going to fix it on the outside by creating these boats that collect the plastic from the ocean, by looking for, living on Mars for, like, the next technological invention. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything bad with those things, but that's not, we're just going to create the problem elsewhere because we're not dealing with the source. And the source is, that 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 basically, fear dominates truth, or vanity dominates wisdom. And until we make that switch, until we realize that, what we all really want is, we all want love, and we all want peace, and we all want happiness, and we all want harmony. And that doesn't come with a technological invention. That comes with a shift in mind. So, every great person that walked on this planet, the people that we all agree are great, right? Jesus, Buddha, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, the greatest of the great. None of them ever said, stick your legs behind your head, or, be a vegan, or, rely on technology. Every one of them said the same thing. They said, try to develop the benevolent qualities of your mind. Jesus said, do not judge. And Buddha said, moderation. And Mother Teresa, compassion. And Mandela, forgiveness. Gandhi, nonviolence. And Martin Luther King, equality. Right? They all said, try to develop the benevolent qualities of your mind in their own way. And if anybody thinks that yoga is any different, they got another thought coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same.
That's
They
the
bring
long
it up
answer.
Yeah, and teaching can facilitate a space where those qualities kind of come more into the mind.
Well, teaching and practicing give you the place and the time and the guidance to do it. Like, like what I don't know if any of you ever went to church on Sundays, but if you ever go to church on Sundays, a lot of times the preacher will say a lot of amazing things, right? And everybody in the congregation screams, amen. We all agree, right? But then we go home and nothing fucking changes. Why does nothing change? Because you have to do more than agree with the preacher. You have to take the time out of the day to actually develop the qualities the preacher was preaching about. The benevolent qualities I'm talking about are exactly like muscles. If you use them, they develop, and if you don't, they atrophy. Right? So it's really about cultivating benevolent qualities, using them. That's what meditation is. Whether it's the meditation of compassion, or the meditation of gratitude, or the quieting of one's mind, you're developing silence, you're developing gratitude, you're developing compassion. That's what meditation is. It's the time you take to develop benevolent qualities. And if you don't take that time, it ain't going to happen. It's impossible. You can't develop something you don't use.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I love, because that's not esoteric. You see it in everything in the planet. If you feed it, it gets strong. And if you don't feed it, it starves and dies. If you use your muscle, it grows. And if you don't use it, it atrophies. So the biggest question in yoga is what are you using? What are you using 24/7, but you don't even know you're using it? Because they taught us math, history, and science, but they never taught us the largest factor in our entire life is the place where our mind dwells. So most people don't know. Every day they're walking around strengthening everything that's hurting them.
Yes.
Because they're rolling in these sick tendencies, but they don't know because no one taught us to look at our mind state. Totally unaware. And that's why the goal of yoga is awareness. That's why Socrates, or the Greek oracle, said, know thyself. Because you can't stop doing what's hurting you if you don't even know that you're doing it. And again, like Carolyn just said, that's why the goal of yoga is enlightenment. enlightenment means to turn on the fucking light. And the reason you turn on a light is because you can't see in the dark. You can only see in the light. So the goal of yoga is to see, which is why they used to call the ancient yogis seers, right? The goal of yoga is to see because you can't stop doing what's hurting you if you don't see that you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes you such a good teacher is like, in your class, you don't just talk about, alignment or breathing. It's all these deeper qualities that most people just don't get in a yoga class. And the way you set up your book was great. It was funny, it was insightful, but very simple. So my next question has to do with your book. How did that come about? How long did it take you to write it? How did you publish it? All that good stuff.
Yeah, well, I had a bunch of book deals. I think I had 3 book deals.
Wow.
Um, you know, there is even a book right now. I think I forgot who wrote it. It's called Power Yoga for Dummies. You know how
Oh,
they have those whole dummy series,
Yeah.
you know. Well, I turned it down. That was supposed to be mine. Because I didn't want to be boxed in, about
how did they use your name?
what's that?
How did they use your name? It's called Power Yoga for
That's
Dummies.
not my name. I created Power Yoga, but I didn't trademark it.
Right.
Oh,
I remember that part
So
of the book.
yeah, I don't
Kind of
remember
talks
that.
about that.
yeah, it does talk about that. So, anyways, you know, I I didn't want to be one. And I remember one book they sent me in advance, and there's a certain schedule. You have to have like the first chapter done by this date, and the second chapter. Like they give you a schedule, and I ended up sending them back their deposit because I couldn't meet their schedule. Like just in every way, shape, or form, I didn't want to be hemmed in by their constraints, and so I ended up self-publishing myself. And the book came about because, believe me, I did not want to write the book to share my story. That I didn't want. That's not why I wrote the book. I
Okay.
wrote the book because I thought that um, my story could help support other people's story. Right? Like I thought, like taking the trials and tribulations of my journey and putting a positive spin on it, which is the way I actually look at it, and putting all the difficulties and challenges that I've been through, and showing how I benefited from all those, I thought would help other people look at their trials and tribulations in a more positive light and understand that the things that they're going through, as difficult as they are, they're actually good, not bad, right? Because they can be used to contribute to their growth and their evolution. And so, I wanted to share people with people that message because the more you can look at your journey in a positive light, the less stress you accumulate from your journey, right? Because you're not looking at your journey in a negative way. So you're not building any stress and tension over through your journey. And therefore, there's more greater chance for you to be healthy. And again, that's my mission in life is to contribute to healing and to health and all that, and there's some parts of the book, like the Tiger Balm incident and all that, where, you could argue I could have left it out, but I also wanted to establish my humanness, like I'm a human, I'm a guy, I'm going through life, like other people. And, so a lot of that also was, just to establish the fact that, hey, I'm a human. I have these experiences. That was like an experience that I had. And I'm not coming from a holier thou place. And, I'm just a dude going through my life. And so, I wanted to make sure that, my humanness was in there too.
I mean, you didn't leave anything out. And that's one of the reasons the book is so good. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so raw and so honest. And that's hard to find and it's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things I appreciated most about the book. And what you were saying before, like what you wanted people to get from the book, just to look at their challenges as something positive, like from right when I started reading from the very first chapter, like that really had that impact on me, just with some challenges I'm going through. That's exactly what I have been getting from the book. So mission accomplished. And thank you, because it's actually helped me tremendously. Especially with like the ups and downs we've gone through lately, just because we owned a yoga studio through COVID. So that was pretty crazy. But this theme in the book seems to be one of trust in the universe, no matter how bleak things can seem externally. What helped you keep this mentality through the toughest times that you've been through?
Um, like I had said in the beginning, is that, like I I just see, to me, everything just seems so simple and easy to understand. And like I look at the world, like I look at nature, and Mother Earth, and I just see the perfection in nature. I see, like, how, the leaves fall, and the rains come and they break down the leaves, and then the insects eat the leaves, and then the insects poop, and then the poop fertilizes the soil, and then the new grass grows, and the deer. It's like everything's in this perfect cycle. What did they say in the Lion King? It's like the cycle of life, right? Hakuna Matata or something like that.
Kuna Matata.
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, it is to me so obvious. The seasons, it's like this perfect system, right? It's like this it's like this perfect flow that's created all this stuff, and that we are part of that, right? We are part of that. And I know a lot of people have lost their connection to nature, but there's no part of us that's not part of that, right? Which also allows me some peace when I see that we're destroying the planet, because I feel like we're destroying the planet perfectly. Like we're doing our job perfectly, like nature knows what it's doing. And I'm not saying I like it, but I'm also saying that I trust it, which means the fact that it's happening doesn't stress me because I trust it, right? So, the scientists, they look at the crust of the earth and they can actually say that the earth has been almost completely, utterly destroyed like 9 different times. Like a meteor will hit the planet and the cloud of dust will be so great that it blocks out the rays of the sun, and
Yeah.
almost everything on the earth dies, right? And so I look at humans as like we're the meteor, we're the volcano, we're destroying the planet perfectly. So I look at, and it doesn't mean I like it, and I do everything in my life to prevent it. That's my life's mission, because I also have a desire um, to create health and wellness and healing. So there's these two things going on. They seem opposite, but they're not. My desire is for healing, and my knowledge is that everything is happening perfectly, right? So it allows me to make the effort towards healing, and at the same time accept what is. I think there's the Christian serenity prayer that says that, right?
Yeah.
Lord, let me change what I can change and accept what I can't, right? And so um, anyways, I look at everything is going on perfectly. So I look at everything that's happening in my life as nature unfolding perfectly. And I also look back on my life, and I think you girls, you can do the same thing, right? Like if you look in the mirror, you guys, everything that you are today, these two beautiful women that have this podcast, and I think you guys have families, and all, everything that you have today is a byproduct of everything that you went through, right? And you went through a lot of shit in your life. You've gone through a lot of pain in your life. You've been through difficulties, and yet going through all these difficulties has brought you to where you are today. So how can you say those difficulties were bad if they've actually brought you to where you are today. Right? I don't know if you have kids, but if you have beautiful kids, remember, you wouldn't even have those kids if you didn't go through all that stuff, because all that stuff brought you to where you are. Right? So you got to go through what you got to go through to get to where you're headed. Right? So how can you say any of it was bad even though it didn't feel good? Right? So if you can start trusting, and remember, by the way, the only reason way that this muscle got big is because I challenged it. Right? Without challenge, this muscle would atrophy. Right? So in order to become strong, you need to be challenged. Right? In order to become wise and creative and insightful and to develop, you have to be challenged. So, in other words, your challenges are good. Those are what's strengthening you and developing you and making you wiser and more creative, insightful. Without challenge, you wouldn't have any of that. So, to me, challenges are not bad, they're good. And when you can look at challenges in a positive light instead of a negative light, then they can no longer hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the problem with challenges isn't the challenge. The problem is the perspective you have on the challenge,
Right.
The mind state.
the mind state, right? So, that, and to me, that's just the way I see things. And so, I know a lot of people don't see things like that, and they get in completely panicky and stressed out over what's happening in their life. They even get desperate. Sometimes they even sacrifice their morals and ethics because of that.
Yeah.
And, I just wanted to share with people, another perspective, that they don't have to go to those dark places, hang in there and breathe and trust that, it's all going to work and out, and it will. I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody can say that it hasn't.
True.
Maybe except for the people who are in prisons that didn't, that didn't trust their process. And even there's so many people that have been through the prison system that have actually used that prison system to make a positive change. So they're even thankful for the prison system. And, I share with you guys that story at the end of the book. I don't know if you got there yet, Amanda, but about, the lady with tears in her eyes who came up to me because she had a baby with Down syndrome. And that would seem like one of the worst curses that you could have, is to have a baby with Down syndrome, right? And how grateful she was and how thankful she was for this beautiful child that was her greatest teacher.
Yeah.
Right? And so, anyways, that's the way I look at life, and I wanted to, that's really the bottom line foundation of the book.
I love
That's the
it.
emphasis. That's the reason for the book.
Do you think that your Vipassana meditations are a huge reason why you think this way? And do you think that it's necessary for self growth?
Yes, I do think that my Vipassana meditation, which is the only scenario on earth that I know that actually creates the environment that Vipassana creates. I don't think any of you guys can think of any other scenario on earth where you don't talk for 10 days, and you meditate for 12 hours a day. And not only that, but they feed you and they house you and they teach you and they don't charge you any money.
Yeah.
It's like going to Mars. It's like you're on another planet. There's like nothing in this existence that's like that. And I do believe that scenario does evoke stuff that otherwise wouldn't be evoked. It does facilitate realizations and understanding, because remember, the quieter you get, the more you can hear. Right? And there's no situation on earth that promotes that type of quietness. So you end up learning a lot. You hear a lot, right? And so, yeah, I do think that Vipassana has been a huge facilitator and contributor, and I highly recommend it. And or if you can find another scenario that's similar, maybe it's true Vipassana doesn't have a monopoly on that, but I do believe that scenario does have a monopoly.
Yeah.
Right? Like you do have to, and that's why throughout yoga history, the yogis have they left their communities and they left their families and they went away to a quiet place and devoted their life to meditating, right? They, whether it's a temple or an ashram, or a forest abode. And it's kind of interesting too, because that's what addicts do too, right? Like if you want to break your addiction, you have to go to a treatment center, right? You have to pull yourself away from negative influences and put yourself in a supportive environment. And that's exactly what yogis did. They went to a treatment center. They just didn't call it a treatment center, they called it an ashram, because what they were trying to do is deal with the largest addiction of their life,
Yeah.
right? The place where their mind dwells. And so, yeah, I do feel there was something else you said. It wasn't Vipassana, but you said something else, Caroline, that contributes.
No, that was it. Just,
That was it.
if it kind of, being in those meditations are what helped you have this really clear view of what yoga is and how to explain it to people.
Possibly, if it wasn't if it didn't give me the understanding completely, it definitely was a large contributor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to do one.
I know, me too.
Another wonderful part of your book is just all the stories from, the 90s and the early 2000s, like yoga in LA, and just things were very, very different back then. How do you feel about the state of yoga today?
That's another really good question. I first of all, again, I trust that the universe knows what it's doing. So, I do trust that it's all going down perfectly. I would never criticize it. I remember my mom used to tell me, like, my mom grew up with Elvis Presley. And, the first time, like, people were wearing blue jeans and slicking back their hair. And she used to tell me how, the adult or the parents would criticize them. And then, when we were coming up, I remember the adults criticizing us, and it didn't feel good. And then, as we got older, we start seeing these guys walking down the street with their pants hanging halfway down their ass. You can literally see the crack of their ass, and you're like, then the tendency is to be critical, like, what the fuck are they doing? But you remember how we didn't like it when they criticized us,
Yeah.
right? Like, so the last thing I would do is criticize this new generation, and what they're doing. I can't really say that I understand it. And I, and even when it came, because even at the tail end of my generation, a big part of yoga was the music, bringing music into yoga, and that's like a very strong element these days, combined with the fact that it's become very corporate.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a blog on my website, that the name of the blog is The New Yoga Studio. And, I give my feelings about that, and, the pluses and minuses of corporate yoga, as opposed to the mom and pop yoga that existed more when I was coming up. But I do know that, listen, if I understand music, I understand how uplifting it can be. And, sometimes that music can carry you right through your yoga practice. It enhances, activity. Like, people like to play music at the office, and they like to play music when they're working construction, and, they like to play music when they're training. And it's, I get that, but, you're not going to play bad music. You're only going to play good music. Who would play bad music? And, to me, if the music's good, then it's a distraction, right? Because, like, if you're listening to Bob Marley, you're not going to, how can you stay focused on what you're feeling, if you're listening to that man's lyrics? Because his lyrics are profound, right? And if you're listening to Santana, how are you going to focus on what you're feeling if, Santana's playing the guitar? Because his guitar is so fucking amazing, you're going to be mind blown. You're going to be like, wow, this is amazing. So it's like, you know, I say, when you're listening to music, listen to music. But when you're practicing yoga, practice yoga, right? Like during a yoga practice, if it depends on what your agenda is too. Maybe what yoga's become is, the agenda is different now. But, if the agenda is healing, then, you can't, there's no healing if you're not honoring what you're feeling, right? The reason you have feelings is to guide you. The sensations that you have is your sacred partner, your body speaking to you in a language called sensation, right? A very succinct language. And, if you're not going to pay attention to what your body's saying because, you're listening to Bob Marley's lyrics or Santana's guitar, then why are you even doing what you're doing? Like, why are you doing it? Like if you don't want to hear the answer, then why ask the question?
Yeah.
Right. So, so that's why I don't play music. Now, maybe someone who's into music and all that, they can have a retort to that, and they can have an intelligent retort to that. And I would say, oh, wow, cool. But that's why I don't play music. I mean, not to mention I have the type of voice that gets lost, in music. I have a very low resonant voice. And so if you were going to hear my voice while playing music, I'd have to literally scream.
Right.
And, by the end of the class, I would have no voice left. But basically that's why I don't play music, because, it's, I want people to tune into their breathing. I want them to tune into the experience they're having so they can make the most intelligent decisions, and then a workout becomes healing.
Makes sense.
Maybe you and Johnny could have a friendly debate on using music in yoga. Your
Yeah,
brother.
well, I never debated Johnny on that. That's true. And I never took Johnny's class once
You've
in my
never
life.
taken his class?
Ever?
I did take it once, way like before he played music. And then he ran over to me and like wanted my feedback, right?
Right.
And and I actually didn't really like that class. Like it was like, he was just starting, and it wasn't my type of practice, right? And I didn't know how to tell him that, when he's standing there waiting for feedback. And so I just decided I wasn't going to take his class anymore because I didn't want to be put in that position anymore. So, I've seen his son Jonah, listen, it's awesome for anybody that gets into it. It's awesome. I can't tell you how many people that I've met that have taken Johnny and Jonah's class that fucking love it, and
He's from
that
Michigan, so she
yeah,
took his class all
yeah,
the
I've
time.
taken his class just because I go home and visit my parents. So I always go when I'm home. So I've taken it, a few times a year for 25 years. And I love you both. I don't need to choose. You guys
yeah.
are both amazing.
Yeah, and I know so many people that love his class, and so many people that have gotten benefit from his class. So, to each their own.
Yes.
To each their own. Kudos.
What do you think is the best thing about you just experiencing that whole budding yoga scene in the 90s, 2000s? Like you're almost like a yoga rock star.
Not
You know?
almost.
What was the best part of like living through that?
The best part, I told you guys, Caroline is really good at asking questions. The best, the best part about that is like, and Carolina, you were a student back then, so you know this too. It's like we all really felt like we were onto something really special. Like it was like this energy, like we knew that we were like really onto something, like we had discovered something and we were participating in something that was amazing and transformative, and like we had discovered a pot of gold, and we were really, it was the input, this was the beginning of it, right? This wasn't happening in Michigan. This
No.
didn't exist in Michigan. This didn't exist anywhere in the world outside of the west side of LA. and it was like the melting pot. It was like the impetus, and it was like, it was like this, like we were in the center of the bee's hive, and the buzzing and creative, and it's like, yeah, man, and it was with everything. Now, I'm not a vegan and I'm not a vegetarian, and I don't promote that in any way, shape, or form, but but you know experimenting with all that stuff, basically saying, the status quo is there's room for improvement. There's a lot of room for improvement, and let's look at our diet, and let's look at our exercises, and let's look at our intentions, and all that stuff was exploding then, and you could feel it. It was tangible, right? And that was the best part about it. It was like, it was exciting. It was like there wasn't a day I didn't wake up excited, to go out and teach my class, and to feel the energy, and to see the smiles, and to have the conversations. It was just, and again, Carolina, you were there as a student. You were there, and you were having the same effect as me, because I was maybe teaching the class, but I was also a student of yoga at that time as well.
It was like a revolution, I feel like, almost.
Yes, great word. It was like literally like a revolution of mind and body and heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look back on that time of like owning a studio, if you could do it again, would you change anything? Just like, even, I know you didn't own Dance Home, but you like, it was essentially a space you created. And then you did go on to own yoga studios. Do you have any regrets, or would you do anything differently? I guess probably not, since everything is the teacher. But when you look back on it, does anything kind of come up as, oh, I maybe wish I would have done that a little bit differently?
No, like, first of all, I did own a bunch of studios, not just dance homes. So I'm kind of familiar, with the whole bricks and mortar. I also owned online studios. I still do. So yeah, I really did have a full experience. And there's not, no, I even said it in my book. The only thing I would have changed is, I probably would have saved a little more. You know, I would have saved a little more, but there's nothing I would have changed. It was amazing on every level. I can't think of a way that I could have made it more amazing.
Yeah, it's a great answer.
Yeah. Do you miss any of your teachers or Santa Monica community students? Or is it just kind of like, eh?
Well, it lived its time, or
Yeah, well, that's a great question too, because first I would say the answer is no. Like, I don't miss any of that, because what I want in my life is different now than what I wanted then. And so I'm very happy with how things are going now and what I'm doing it. And also, almost similarly, very excited about the possibilities.
yeah.
But I do go back to Los Angeles once a month, and I
Hmm.
do lead classes there. And I can't tell you how good it, and my old community does come to take the class.
Where do you
And
teach?
I teach in Venice at a studio called Shefa Yoga.
Hmm.
Really? That's
Yeah,
good to
once a month. I've done that for a few years now, and I can't tell you how amazing it is to see those people, like to hug them, because I don't, like, they're not in my mind, right? So like when they come into the class and I see them, it's like, oh my God, it's you. Like, I haven't thought about you or seen you in years, and it's so wonderful to see you. Like, so wonderful. Like, because it brings back so much. And and there might be more about to it than that too. There might be like some, underlying stuff happening when I get to reconnect with them, that just is so soothing and sweet.
Do you stay in touch with your teachers too, or no? Any of your teachers?
Well, I do stay in touch with some of them. The ones that I had a connection with, I stay in touch with them. Some of them worked at my studio, but it's not like we hung out, we were friends or anything. So those people I don't see a lot. But anybody that's on poweryoga.com, my streaming service, I still try to bring them up to where I am now, and try to get one or two classes recorded, 3 4 classes recorded a year. So I can give the people who are members of my website, some fresh classes with the teachers that they love.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I just had Rudy up here. I just had Tracy Goldman up here. I had Dan Ward and Steve Jones. I mean, I bring them up to, I'm up near Santa Barbara now, and I bring them up here, and we'll record classes and hang out. And yeah, it's nice.
That's cool.
I
You
love LA. LA is a great city. I love it. I just didn't want to live in it.
Yes. We feel the same. We love LA.
Yeah.
I like to visit, but and I'm so glad I lived there in the early 2000s. That was amazing to learn and start teaching yoga there, but I am glad I don't live there anymore.
For sure.
And you share so many like wild and crazy and hilarious stories in this book. What is the craziest thing that like jumps to mind that has ever happened to you when you're teaching a class?
Oh my God. I mean, I've had the craziest stuff. I mean, once I farted and some poop came out. That was horrible.
No way.
Great answer.
While you were teaching?
And I'm like, what the fuck do I do? Because there was a wet spot and it smelled, and I'm in the middle of class, and like that was like you said crazy. That was crazy. I mean,
That is great.
all right, I'll leave it at that. I got more, but that's enough.
Well, so what did you do? Did you just sit in it for the whole class or what?
God damn, another great question, Caroline.
I need to know what happened. Can't leave me hanging.
Okay, well, this is what happened. I thought of a pose that I could leave them in for a little bit.
Yeah.
Child's pose?
Pigeon.
Like pigeon. It was actually pigeon.
Yeah.
Right. So I worked the class to a pigeon pose, and I told everybody I really got to go piss. I'll be right back, and it's not a bad thing to hold this pose for a little bit. I ran to the bathroom. It took me a little bit because it got messy in there, and I had to take my underwear off and throw it in the garbage. I cleaned everything up. Unfortunately, I still had a wet spot on my dark pants, which really was horrible. But I did the best I could, and I came back and I finished the class, and like constantly making sure I was turning my butt away from people. So they were looking at my fronts. I mean, it was a disaster. But listen, if you teach yoga long enough,
Yeah.
like I've had people have seizures in my class. I had to call the police to my class because of the behavior of a student. Like, if you teach long enough and it's a public class, you're going to see everything. Especially if you have over 100 people in every class for 30 years, I mean, it's like, and especially if you teach all over the world, because you're going to get a lot of different types of people, and different responses to this yoga. And of course, the way I teach, with my irreverence, and you know a lot of times people, they come to yoga, they don't expect that, and they're very affronted, and sometimes they're offended, and some people are more aggressive than other people, and I mean, I've had to deal with a lot.
Yeah. Well worth it.
Yeah. So I love in the book how you mentioned like parenthood, and there's one part where it stands out a lot where you were like, oh, I got a divorce and now these kids were gone for half the week or whatever. And it was like the best feeling in the world. Like you light up a joint and you're like, peace out to those kids, right? Like, oh, so it just felt very real because I mean, that's my situation and I love them when they're here, but I also love it when they're gone. And it's nice to get that break. So my question is just, how did parenthood change you, and how much longer do you have so you're free again?
Well, I was not, unfortunately, but I did have a baby at 50. So I have a 7-year-old. So I got a little ways to go, but I am separated from my 7-year-old's mom. So I do have that half a week, and I try to arrange it so all four of my kids come at the same time. So when they do leave, when they're here, I'm mama and papa. I'm making lunches, I'm making lunches at night to put in their lunchbox, and I'm putting them to bed and reading stories. I still read to my 7-year-old, and then when they wake up, I'm getting them up and I'm making them breakfast, taking them to school, and then picking them up and driving them around to, their lessons here and there. So, like, and I don't have a partner when they're here, but when they're, when they go, I collapse, and, and like I said in my book, because I'm mom and dad, I feel like I'm closer to them than ever, right? Because, like, even when, I was married, like, and my wife was doing half the stuff, like, I didn't know what they liked in their lunch. I didn't know this about them and that about them. And now that I have to do everything, I know them in a way I didn't know them before. And, we actually spend more time together. And, so it has worked out. I had to get through the guilt of, like, not being with them when I wasn't with them. um and and just trusting again that the universe knows what they're doing, and my kids have their own karma. And, as parents, we want to protect our kids from everything, but we can't. They have to go through their challenges that are shaping them, right? And so, the time that they're away from me is every bit as much their karma as it is my karma. And I make the most of it when we're together, and I accept when we're not. And I actually, like I said, there's a lot of reasons to enjoy when they're not here, because with the amount of energy I put out when they're here, I actually need that recovery time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I need that recovery time. And I'll tell you, yeah, there was nothing better than sitting in that jacuzzi with that joint after they left and being like, wow, I don't have to do anything now. I
Yeah.
don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anything to do. This is fucking amazing.
Yeah. It's the one benefit of divorce.
Yeah.
The one.
Yeah.
The only one, possibly.
Probably. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. And, well, I chose divorce. I mean, I didn't get married knowing that I would get divorced. Of course, I got married thinking this is forever. So, of course, it wasn't my choice in a sense. But, when things were going south, and I thought the healthiest thing for everybody was to separate, then I actually made the choice to be divorced. So, the fact that I actually was divorced was actually another good thing, because I certainly didn't want to be in that situation any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, that was another good thing about divorce is that I was, in a situation where I felt happier,
Yeah.
even though I didn't, ever foresee that.
Yeah.
Since you've moved out of LA and into like a quieter, more peaceful area, do you feel like a difference in anxiety levels just in your day to day?
Yeah, another really good question. Yes, 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 because I said it in the book. And the craziest thing is, as I mentioned in the book, is that, like, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years before I moved, I started developing anxiety. And it really was confusing to me and befuddling, and, like, I'm a yogi, and, like, how could I be getting, that's like the opposite. Like, yoga is supposed to make you, peaceful and relaxed. I felt like it was really a confusing thing, and so, I had to, like, figure out what was going on, and but the anxiety was getting more and more intense. And my whole philosophy is, like, tuning in and listening to what your partner, your body's saying in the language of sensation. And, there's not too many stronger sensations than anxiety, right? And so, basically that's what I did. I was like, something's not right. I need to make a shift. And, you know, um, and I felt like I needed to leave LA. I don't know what it was that was giving me anxiety. I didn't know if it was the fact of the electrical lines that were by my house that I could hear buzzing 24/7 because of because I lived right near Lincoln Boulevard. I mean, these there must have been 100 of them, and there was so much electricity you could hear the buzzing 3 blocks away. And I don't know if that was fucking with my nervous system because I didn't feel that when I lived up in Topanga, right?
Yeah.
But it started like a couple years after I moved to Venice. And I know I didn't know if it was just, the congestion and the noise. I didn't know what it was. But the crazy thing is I knew I needed to leave. And and I knew where I wanted to go, which is I wanted to come to Ojai because I've been coming up here for 30 years. Um, and the craziest thing was, and this is I'm not exaggerating. The day I got up here, the anxiety disappeared and it never came back. 100% of it.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
And the craziest thing is I know for certain if anybody else was in my situation, 99% of them would have went to a doctor and got a drug. Right? They would have got a drug for anxiety because that's what the doctor would have said to do. And like they wouldn't have realized that, their body was speaking to them, that there was something wrong with their situation and they needed to change their situation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There was nothing wrong with them. What was wrong was the situation. And it's like going too far in a pose and you start to feel pain. That's your body saying, back off. This
Yeah.
is dangerous, right? And so that's the craziest thing is how many people are on drugs right now, trying to medicate themselves instead of, trying to, listening to what their body's saying. They're camouflaging what it's saying with a drug.
Yeah.
They're doing that with our kids, with all the ADHD medications and the anxiety medications. They're just, they just want to put all these kids on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they think the answer is drugs. Well, I'm a living example. I completely cured my anxiety. How many doctors would have said leave LA?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I really feel like, there's holistic ways to deal with a lot of the stuff. I mean, listen, if you get shot in the head, don't go to an acupuncturist, go to the emergency room. Right? There's allopathic medicine is really good at some things. I'm not being critical, but um, there's a time and place for everything. But our whole medical system is completely fucked up.
Yeah.
And most of these doctors, they're not healers, they're technicians. They're technicians. And listen, when you become a doctor because you can make a lot of money, that's the wrong reason to become a doctor. You become a doctor the same reason you become a yoga teacher, because you're passionate about helping people.
Yeah.
So, and our medical system is, it's full of technicians. It's not full of healers. And also the way the food systems, what people are eating and the toxicity levels. And, there's a reason there's so much sickness.
Yeah.
We're living unnaturally.
Very true. One other thing I thought of, and we won't keep you much longer. I think we only have like 2 more questions, but one thing that I thought of as we were talking, there's one chapter where you talk about, I think you got into like a fight in your car over some guy throwing some trash out or something, and you went to go teach and you felt like such a phony, right? Here you are talking about like, be kind, blah, blah, blah. And then, there's still like so much anger in you. And I experienced that feeling of like phoniness a couple of times when I teach, like at the end, like sometimes I want to say something and like, or I've had a situation in my life where I get angry or I yell at my kids and then I go to the studio and I say, breathe and don't let situations in your life like take you out of your zen and that sort of stuff. So recently I've just been sharing like quotes from your book. And it's funny, I have like a notes document with like all your quotes from like your previous workshops and then from the book. And there's actually 69 of them. Remember I showed that to you? I'm like,
That's
why
right.
is it 69? That's so funny.
Because I'm a Scorpio.
So like
It
it's
makes sense that my quotes add up to 69.
I know it's so weird. Like I was just laughing so hard, but it's really helped me a lot. Like being able to just share very like simple but powerful quotes at the end of class, just to kind of leave people with a thought, right? So that's really helped me with just being able like not feel like such a phony. But besides that situation in your life, did you feel that often when you taught? Did that come up for you?
I felt that way when things like that would happen. When I was so obviously not practicing what I preach. Um, so yeah, I have felt that way. The older I get, the less I feel that way because the better I get at practicing what I preach. But what I wanted to share with you is that this is a process of strengthening the benevolent and eradicating the malevolent. It doesn't happen all at once, right? So Carolina, like so much, but that doesn't mean you can live 24/7 everything you know. What it means is you're trying to. You're trying to, and as you keep trying, you get better, right? You get better. But it's a process, right? So you gotta be a little compassionate towards yourself, and you got to be a little forgiving towards yourself because you're also preaching that, right? Compassion and forgiveness. So you got to have that towards yourself, number one, right? And understand that you're not going to be perfect at this, you know, at any given moment. You're just going to get better and better and better. But the main thing that you should be happy about is that you're aware of it. Like you're aware that you acted one way and you preached another way. You're aware that what you did was hypocritical or not optimal, right? Because most people are not even aware of it, right? So the fact that you're aware of it is what's giving you the opportunity to overcome it. So really, you should go the opposite way. We should go the opposite way, and understand we're making progress
Yeah.
because we're simply aware of it. The fact that you feel bad about it is actually good, not bad, because that means that you're on it, you're aware of it, and you're working on that. So again, you can put that in a positive light for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Hmm. I don't. I have no idea. Like I said, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the possibilities. I'm very excited to if the universe dictates it, that I get out there and I share new insights and I share new discoveries and I share a deeper version of what I've always been sharing. And I'm excited about that. And sharing might mean through the book. Um, it might be through seminars. It might be through other types of writing, or I don't know how it's going to manifest actually, but I'm excited about the possibilities. And I do think there's more coming on that level. But I have no idea how it's going to manifest. But I'm still excited about it.
Nice.
Are you still streaming your classes?
Yes.
How many classes a week do you stream?
Oh, I'm not live streaming.
Not
No,
live streaming.
no.
Okay.
We still, there's, I have 1,500 classes online, but,
Nice.
um, you know, I'm not live streaming at this point. I've considered starting it again.
So all your classes are just pre-recorded, and that's like where people go to your site. And then how many classes are you releasing a week? Or do you release?
I release between 2 and 5 a month, new ones, 2 and 5
Oh,
a month, new ones.
And do you record it at that studio that you're teaching up there in Ojai, or in your home, or where?
Anywhere. I've recorded them in my home studio. I've recorded them at the new studio I teach at up here. Yeah, anywhere I can record the classes, I will. So far, it's been in my home because I have a home studio, and it's been at the new studio that I teach up here.
All right. Is there anything else that you're promoting right now besides the book and your website, poweryoga.com? No?
No, no, nothing else I can think of. But yeah, I am promoting the book, and I'm kind of passively promoting it. I'm hoping like people like you will call me and ask me to do a podcast, and and then I can do it and share it. I never been good at marketing myself, and it's always been uncomfortable for me. So, um, so I'm kind of passively marketing it, and hoping that it just, word of mouth. Because, everything that we had in Santa Monica back in the day, I never marketed. I never made an advertisement. I never put something in a magazine or took out something in the newspaper, which was the only avenues back then. It was all really organic, and look at the wave of yoga that accumulated just from organic, stuff. So I'm kind of hoping that, somehow this book catches on, and a lot of people can get a hold of it, and it can affect people.
So the book is called Autobiography of an American Yogi. Obviously, it's a play off autobiography of a yogi, right?
Well, it does, first of all, Autobiography of a Yogi, like, that guy's my guru.
Yeah.
He's definitely, I got, books by my, I mean, I don't know if you can see on the wall, but I got a picture of him up on the wall over there. I mean, he's my guru, and so, he's in my mind. So, yeah, I mean, obviously that title was put into my head because of him, but I do think it's so apropos, because what us Americans have done with the yoga is so much different than like his story. It's so much different than his story.
Much better, in my opinion. I think it's the best yoga book ever written.
So
It's
happy to hear that. That's awesome.
It is. I really do. I was telling people that. Like, I've read a lot of yoga books, and this is one of the best ones I've ever read. So, and we just ordered a couple of copies for
Yeah,
our studio to sell. So,
it'll be
Oh,
available at our
beautiful.
studio. And I agree with Carolina. I mean, thank you so much for being so honest
mhm.
and telling all those stories that you share, because it's really hard to find a voice like that these days. I think people are trying to craft an image, and that raw honesty is beautiful, and the book is amazing. So thank you for
Yeah.
writing it.
You're
Yay.
welcome, you guys.
Thank you so much for your time today. We'll send you obviously everything so that you can share it. But we're so lucky that you decided to do this for us, and we're excited to see you on November 2nd.
Yes, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
You're very welcome, you guys. It's been an incredible pleasure talking to you. Literally, it's been a pleasure.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, and I look forward to seeing you guys in November. I really do look forward to it.
All
Thank you,
right.
Ryan.
You're welcome.